Before we begin tonight's story, I want you to turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and make sure you're completely alone. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a true experience, a chilling reminder that sometimes even the safest places can become the most terrifying. True creepy stories from Airbnb. Story 1. I booked an Airbnb in the spring of 2022. It was a small cabin in the woods with a few other identical cabins scattered throughout the host's property. There were some faint trails connecting the cabins, but no signs. They probably just formed while the owner was building and moving around the woods often. I didn't really have any plans for this trip. Just 3 hours from my home, I thought it would be nice to get away from everyday life and enjoy some time in the forest. On the second day, I slept in until noon, made some coffee, and relaxed by the fireplace. Before sunset, I put on a hoodie and went for a walk. I wasn't sure where I was going. I just followed a small trail behind the cabin. I assumed it would lead to another cabin and maybe loop back. As I went deeper into the woods, I suddenly noticed a couple of people standing in the distance, maybe 200 to 300 meters away. The way they stood was strange. Two men, completely still, staring down at the ground. They weren't talking or doing anything, just looking down at the forest floor. The sight was unsettling enough that I kept glancing back as I walked until they were out of view. Maybe they were just other guests from nearby cabins taking a walk in the woods. Maybe the distance made it look stranger than it was. At least that's what I told myself. I kept walking a few more minutes, but then realized the trail wasn't looping back or turning. It was just heading deeper into the woods, away from the other cabins. Seeing those two men earlier, combined with the path not being what I expected, made me think I should turn back. Just as that thought crossed my mind, a strange sound rang out behind me, making me jump. It was like a roar or animal call, kind of like a deer's cry, but not natural. I turned and froze. The two men were now on the trail behind me, about 150 meters away, standing still. They were facing me, and it looked like they were staring. From that distance, I couldn't see clearly. Honestly, the sound I'd heard was too loud and bizarre to have come from them, even if they were trying to mimic an animal. That sound echoed through the woods, unlike anything I had ever heard. I stood still for a few minutes, because to return to my cabin, I'd have to pass the exact spot they were standing. I needed to be sure they were gone. I also didn't want to go deeper down the trail. After about 5 minutes, when I was fairly sure they weren't around, I hurried back to my cabin. I thought about texting the Airbnb host to ask about the trail or those men, but it felt weird and unnecessary, so I kept it to myself, lit a fire, and tried to calm down. The sun was setting, and I didn't plan to leave the cabin again. In fact, after what I saw, I definitely wasn't going out. I made some tea and sat by the fire. After about half an hour, I started to feel better, but I only had 15 minutes of peace before hearing that same sound again. That horrible cry, echoing from deep in the woods. I couldn't tell how far it was. Maybe the cabin walls muffled the sound. I looked out the back window, but saw nothing but shadows of trees in the darkness. The more I looked, the more unsettling it felt. A chill ran through me, and I quickly pulled the curtains shut. I grabbed my phone to see if it was a common animal sound in the area. I'm not really a nature person. I know almost nothing about animals. After some searching, I found nothing. The more I searched, the more unnerved I felt. I put my phone down, trying to shake it off. Another 30 minutes passed, but I couldn't forget it. Then, through the sound of crackling firewood, I heard footsteps on the cabin's porch, the sound of shoes on wood. They stopped right outside the door. My heart was pounding. After 20 long seconds, there was a slow knock. I can't describe the fear as I crept up and looked through the peephole. 2 men were standing outside, the same ones from the woods. They wore cheap plastic animal masks that only covered the front half of their faces. Both had their hoodies up, looking nearly identical. I immediately dialed 911 and backed away. As I connected to the operator, they knocked again. I whispered, but I was sure they could hear me. I barely got halfway through explaining when a loud bang hit the door. For a moment, I thought they were going to break in. It was the most terrified I had ever felt. But after that hit, I heard footsteps walking away. I looked through the peephole and saw them heading back toward the forest. It took almost 30 minutes for the police to arrive. The officer found knife marks on the door. They must have stabbed it before leaving. Posting it for me. I insane left right after that, and of course to that area. But so far nothing, whatever their intentions were, remains a mystery.
Story 2. Last year, I was promoted at work. Not a big raise, but the new position required me to travel all over different states. I was single, no attachments, so I was really excited. My accommodations kept changing. Sometimes hotels, sometimes resorts, sometimes small Airbnbs. That week, I traveled to a new town for work, and they arranged an Airbnb nearby. I had been on the job for 8 months now, and the excitement had worn off a bit. After landing, I picked up a rental car and drove to the address. I realized right away, this place was farther from the office than usual, about a 40-minute drive. I arrived around 1 a.m. and almost thought I was at the wrong place. The house was massive, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, with a huge yard. I triple-checked, but it was the right address. I brought my stuff inside. The exterior looked luxurious, but the interior was a bit old-fashioned, not my taste. Still, I couldn't complain, way too big for just one person. After a long flight, I just wanted to sleep. I unpacked a little, turned off the lights, and went to bed. As I lay down, I noticed the house creaked a lot. The walls, faint thuds, strange noises. I figured that's just how big houses are. But since I'm a light sleeper, the constant noises kept me awake, and I got thirsty. I reluctantly got up and walked down the long hallway to the kitchen. Strangely, as soon as I went downstairs, all the noises stopped, like they cut off the moment I walked out. Confused, I just grabbed some water and went back. After that, I managed to sleep peacefully the rest of the night. The next day was busy at work, then drinks with coworkers, and I came back around 11 p.m. I sat on the sofa and realized I hadn't explored the house yet. It was ridiculously big, and the price was the same as smaller places nearby. Strange. I noticed a few things hadn't been cleaned from the last guests. Pillows out of place, chairs shifted, especially one kitchen chair pulled out. I was sure in the morning they had all been tucked in neatly. I thought I must have been mistaken, so I pushed it back. After a shower, I went to bed. Just as I was drifting off, the creaking started again. Same as the night before. But this time, it sounded exactly like footsteps, drawers opening and closing. I opened my bedroom door and stood in the hallway, listening. The noises didn't stop, they were even clearer. I slowly crept down the stairs. The moment I stepped onto the first one, all the sounds stopped. My heart pounded. Looking down the hallway, I saw the kitchen light on. I clearly remembered turning everything off. As I approached, my blood ran cold. The kitchen chair was pulled out again. Then I saw, in the dark room behind it, a shadowy figure peeked its head out at me. We locked eyes for a few seconds before it... Panicking, I grabbed my phone, ran outside, and called the police. The Airbnb host showed up later but didn't believe me, saying there was no door in the house like what I described. My company moved me to a hotel immediately. I stayed shaken,
the rest of the trip. If I had stayed one more night, I don't know what would have happened. Story 3. Another time, during a long road trip to visit relatives, I rented an Airbnb in a small town. It was a modest house in the suburbs, nothing special. I arrived late, around 10 or 11 p.m. The host, named Jay, showed up as I was unloading my car. I was surprised he came in person. He eagerly helped me carry my bags, led me into the house, and even showed me the bedroom. I was tired and just wanted to rest, but it felt a bit uncomfortable. Usually, I never even meet the host face to face. After a few minutes, I didn't hear him leave, so I went downstairs to check. No one there. I locked the door and went to bed. The next day, I had dinner with my relatives. When I came back, I found the door unlocked. I was certain I had locked it. Thinking of Jay made me uneasy. I stepped inside, called out, but no response. I sat down to watch TV, then heard strange noises at the far end of the house. I went to check and found a small room with a sofa and table. Oddly, behind the sofa was a gap, a small hidden door. I pushed the sofa aside, and sure enough, it was a door, locked from the inside. A chill went through me. I tried calling Jay, but no answer. As I turned back, the door suddenly creaked open. Someone had unlocked it from the other side. Behind it was a dark stairway leading down to a basement. There was a metal latch on the door, which meant someone had just been in there. Terrified, I rushed upstairs to pack my things. But as I was throwing clothes into my bag, I heard footsteps right outside the hallway. I bolted down, ran out to my car, and the front door slammed shut behind me. I never heard from Jay again. I believe he lived in that hidden basement, maybe to spy, or worse. If I had gone down those stairs, I might not have made it out of that house. So, would you still dare to stay in an Airbnb, deep in the woods, after hearing this? Remember, not every guest is welcome, and not every stranger you meet is really a stranger. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because I'll be back soon with more true horror that will keep you awake tonight.